back here with Todd Hodge, and we're going to talk today about setting your slipper and your diff adjustment and how those kind of correspond with each other. And Todd's going to show us all about the diff and slipper setup.
One thing that a lot of people forget is that how important the slipper is to an RC racing car. The slipper can be your friend or it can be your foe. If you run your slippers too tight, you can really limit the amount of traction your car has. You can also basically make all of those loads being transferred through the suspension, through the drivetrain, going into your diffs or going into your belts or going into your shafts for shaft-driven cars. So one thing that we found on the 22.4 was, and this was definitely at the Worlds also, is that the slipper adjustment was super critical to the way the car handled. So as we were coming off jumps at the Worlds, we noticed that when the slippers were overly tight, the cars would, what I would call, get almost like a speed wiggle when the guys would pick up the throttle and hit the downside of the jump. They would start to wick up the throttle, the car would, as the car would land, to kind of basically bind up the suspension a little bit, and the car would just get this really odd wiggle. So came in, backed off the slippers a little bit, and all of a sudden the guys could come on power, land the jump, and the car would just absorb the energy from landing the jump, and it would get dissipated through the slipper. So today I'm going to tell you a little bit about how to adjust the slipper on your 22.4 because it is very important. So last week at the Reedy race, slipper adjustments were equally as important. But the guys using full-time four-wheel drive, having the slipper set right was basically allowing our diffs to last forever and also improving the wear on the drivetrain. Now I don't care which car you have, whether it's a TLR or any other car in the market, having that slipper adjusted is vitally important. So today I'm going to show you how we adjust the actual slipper on the 22.4. So I have my car here, it's turned on. So to basically check the slipper, you hold down all four tires and just apply a little bit of throttle, and you can hear the slipper there. That's a slipper that's properly. So right now, basically, where we have the slipper set is to where the nut is actually flush with the end of the set screw here. That's pretty much a good starting point for your slipper adjustment. So you'll see here, now you'll actually hear the slipper. You hear the slipper working. Now I'm going to go one full turn tighter on the slipper to show you basically a slipper that's over tightened. So one full turn, we're going to do it again. You're going to hear some nasty noises here, which is basically the belts popping. So those are basically your belts popping, something you do not want. So again, you can basically just bottom out the spring to lock down the slipper, but ideally we don't want to do that. We're going to back it off one full turn, which basically puts this nut flush with the end of the set screw on the slipper shaft, and we're good. Another thing I'd like to tell you guys about is just the amount of power you're actually putting through the system and making sure when you're setting the slipper you're not doing it too much. So if we sat here and basically just held this wide open for the next, say, 30 seconds, we're obviously going to start creating a bunch of heat and may create some terminal problems inside the drivetrain. So when you do that, all you want to do is just do a quick little check, a little quick blip of the throttle to check your slipper, make sure it's good. Right there, how you heard it sound is an ideal setting for most tracks. Now if you're on lower grip tracks, you could probably get away with even a looser slipper setting. I would probably back it off another half a turn to try that. Everybody's driving style is different, but just make sure that your slipper is slipping and it is working so you don't create any diff problems or belt problems. All right, now I'm going to talk about the differential settings on a vehicle. As you all know, differential tightness can drastically change the way your car's handling. On a four-wheel drive car, you obviously have two sets of differentials. You have the front differential and the rear differential. Now you can really change the way the car handles depending on how tight the front diff is or the rear diff is or how loose the front is versus the rear. Ideally, I tend to always run the diffs a little bit tighter in the front where the rear diff's a little looser. Some guys might like a little bit of a looser front diff to get a little bit more turn in. The challenge with that is though you'll lack a little on power steering, so it's something you want to keep in mind. As far as the rear diff, again I like to run mine slightly a little bit looser in the rear than the front. It just helps the car rotate coming on power and through the turn. Now, if you would like to actually gain a little bit more rear grip, overall rear grip, you can tighten the rear diff. And the beauty about our diffs is you can actually use our little 22 diff tool and basically get inside the outdrive here. And we'll get a close-up here in that in a minute. And just slide it in there. Get it in there, so it's in there. And then basically, to tighten the front diff, you're just going to turn the inside tire clockwise or counterclockwise if you wanted to loosen it. And then the same thing with the rear. You can adjust the rear the same as well. So first off, to adjust your diff, we're going to start with the front. Have your 22 diff tool. And all you do, depending on which side your diff screw's on, I always build mine onto the left side of the car. So basically find your home in there for your diff screw. You'll feel it lock into place. Obviously to tighten, you're going to turn the right side tire clockwise to tighten your diff, or counterclockwise to loosen your diff. So now we're going to see how tight the diff actually is. So one of the things Dakota taught me actually at the Nationals this year I thought was pretty brilliant, basically to understand how tight your diff is. And this is going to range from every person depending how fast you spin the wheels. But so we basically marked our wheel with a TLR there. Obviously you don't have to do it that much, but you just basically just flick the wheels a little bit. And that looks like it rotated about, let's do that again, let's see how far. So that rotated about 1.5 times. So now we're going to tighten the diff. Our diff is considerably tighter than about a quarter turn. Bring that back down. Again, we just want to see how far this logo spins when we spin the tires. So there, it went almost about a half a turn. So you can considerably see and kind of get a feel for where your diff settings are. So say your buddy's car is really dialed, you want to go see where his diff settings are. You can easily just take his car, make a reference mark, and just do a quick spin of the front diff. Obviously taking both tires, spinning them opposite of each other to see the diff tension. And so that setting pretty much, I mean, as far as checking that, it goes the same for the rear. So here we have the rear marked. So it's marked right there. So we'll spin that. So that had about almost a full rotation. We'll do it again just to double check. So call it 1 1/4 rotations. Like I said earlier in the video, I like to run the front diff a little tighter than the rear diff. Smooths the steering out going into the turn. It gives you a little bit more on power steering. So that's pretty much how you adjust your diffs on the 22.4. It's something you definitely want to pay attention to. And also another little trick way that Dakota showed me how to actually check your diff tension.
So there you have it. Setting the diff and the slipper on the 22.4. And thanks, Todd, for coming by.
Thanks for having me.
And the next video, we're going to talk about the clicker and full-time four-wheel drive adjustability on the 22.4, and how that can help you with your racing. See you next time.
Hey, I got to get to the track.
Oh, you do?